welcome back to the Doctor Who Marathon. I'm your host McEdam, and today we're going to be talking about the Torchwood episode End of Days, written by Chris Chibnall and directed by Ashley Ways. This is the conclusion of Series 1 of Torchwood, as Chris Chibnall was technically the showrunner. He got the rights to write the final episode, despite Russell T Davies taking the credit as showrunner, which is very bizarre that the series would advertise itself as this, but that Chris Chibnall is technically the showrunner, and therefore he gets to write the final episode. Now, very oddly, despite there's no cliffhanger at the end of the last episode leading directly to the story, this story does directly follow on from the previous story. It kicks off with the events, the after effects from the previous episode. So technically, they come together. Also, fun fact: the BBC had once aired a omnibus version where they've edited Captain Jack Harkness, the episode, and The End of Days as one feature-length episode, which is really strange because despite End of Days follows on from the plot line of Captain Jack Harkness, they do feel like completely separate stories, and the fact that they are written by different writers is also incredibly strange, odd, very odd. This will then also continue a back-to-back-to-back storyline. I say storyline, more of just the stories just continue into the next one. This is the second one after the Captain Jack Harkness episode. So, very interesting stuff. Now, this is the official BBC box set, which I got from my friend Gwen. So, Gwen, if you're watching, thank you very much for giving this to me. But I also printed out my own DVD cover. There was only 2 episodes on this disc, Captain Jack Harkness and this episode, and I thought because the finale story is the more important one, I decided to put that onto it. But because Captain Jack Harkness does tie into it, I did reference it in the cover, and on the back I've stated that that like a two-parter. So the stories are connected, but I personally don't consider them a two-parter. But anyway, here's the cover. With Billis Major, who is the main villain in the previous story, and he also comes back in this story. Funny enough, that's Jack from the previous story, and you've got the great demon Amagon. I actually put this cover together myself, but I'm not particularly proud of it. I'm not happy with how I try to get this this colour on the background to try and fit everything, and Amagon's face is kind of is supposed to be like his head is coming out of the clouds, but from a distance you can't tell what that is from there, can you? So yeah, I might redo this. I don't know. So here's the spine, if anyone is interested. Really nice. And here's the back, which, like I said, has it as if they are a two-parter. I mean, they are heavily connected with one another. And I got images from The End of Days and from Captain Jack Harkness. So technically, I don't know where to put it on to if it's a two-parter or not. So anyway, shall we get on to the story at hand? The story, in terms of the plot, kicks off right after Captain Jack Harkness, as all over the news, there are things just constantly appearing. It's also to note that this is the first time in a while that we've seen Rhys, Gwen's boyfriend, and they seem to have patched things up as Gwen and Rhys are very happy. They're in they're snogging, they're having a room, they're having a bit of a laugh. We get to see Rhys's bottom, which was a visual thing that I was not expecting to see. something that will tie into Doctor Who, but there you go, I got to saw a man's ass. Very nice. Jack gives Gwen a call and it's like, have you heard the news? And on the news, there's been strange events all over the world. At the Taj Mahal, there's alien spaceships hovering over the building. And all over the world, there seems to be the appearances of people in period clothing, some of them from like civil wars from years ago, Romans at one point in Cardiff. But this event seems to be happening all over the world, and religious groups believe that this is the apocalypse, the end of days, which is where the title comes from. Now this story does something extremely odd, because technically the main plot is the crack in time, the rift of it, and how it's bringing all of these people into now, and the horrifying consequences of that. Gwen has to basically arrest a Roman soldier after he stabbed two people without even hesitating, and Jack has to give him an injection to knock him out so they can take him back to the hub. And then, like halfway through the episode, it's discovered that some people have come from during the time of the Black Death. Parts of the plague are coming back, and there's this whole massive tension that, sure, the Black Plague is likely treatable these days, but this rift opens up to all of space and time. What if a disease from the future, which we cannot cure, comes through? What happens then? All of that stuff is basically the background of the narrative. Like, it's so bizarre because this plot line, this stuff is so interesting, you know. The crack has opened, the rift has opened after the events of Owen opening it up to save Jack and Toshika, which was part of Billis Major's plan. So Owen opened it, we have the rift opening, everything is coming to the earth, mainly Cardiff. People from all over time is all over, and with them are bringing almost every disease in history, in both past and future. Which, yes, as I'm watching this, I'm making this video in February of 2021, meaning that for me, the virus pandemic of COVID-19 is still around. So this story kind of hit hard in terms of the realistics of it, because, you know, the whole virus thing, even though here they have one of the worst viruses and it's easily contained. Like, they keep it in one hospital and then that's it. But they do worry, they do fear over the fact that there are going to be more viruses to come. But all of that is basically sidelined. It's in the background. It's in the B plot of the narrative. And that is just so bizarre. It feels like there should have been another story there. It feels like we should have been telling this narrative, but instead we get this other narrative which ties in with characters that we've seen before and their plot lines and the emotional impacts, when we didn't really need that. I mean, it does work, it still narratively and thematically fits with the story. It's just that we already had a convincing argument to kick off this adventure and kick off the emotional impacts of the narrative, and the story does nothing with it. Like, that's really strange. Chris Chibnall's writing, especially during his early ages, during his Torchwood days, has been criticised, especially in episodes like Cyberwoman and Day One. But I feel like this was probably one of the most missed opportunities that he has ever written, and it's so bizarre, it's so odd, and I just don't understand it. So what's the main plot? The main plot has starts off with really Jack and Owen having this massive argument because Owen feels like, right, there's one way to fix it, and that is to open the rift again in the hopes of bringing everyone back. But Jack is like, no, that can cause so much trouble. All of this happening, all this death, destruction, all of the plague, and people coming being ripped out of their time, that's happening because of Owen, because he opened the rift in the previous story. But Owen feels like he's not getting enough gratitude. After all, he did save Jack and Toshika's life. He did save him from the 1940s. But Jack, he doesn't really see that. He is like, you disobey my orders. Rule 1 about Torchwood, the first thing we learn, you don't mess with the rift. And you've done it, which then builds up in a massive argument. This is something that has not been teased, but has been building up throughout the stories, especially in episodes like Combat and Captain Jack Harkness, in which the distrust of Owen to Jack is present, and this scene culminates with Owen basically pushing Jack down and stating, like, who are you? We don't even know who you are. Like, there's no records of you. So if you don't exist, why should we even take orders from you? And Jack basically publicly humiliates. Wow, I can't say that word. Humiliates. Oh, wow. Humiliates. Owen gets humiliated by Jack in front of all the Torchwood team, and Gwen can see this, and she basically has a go at Jack for doing that. But Jack is he's tough, he's hard-headed, he shouts at Gwen, and he's like, he knew the rules. It's what basically keeps everybody under line if they realise they're going to get shouted by Jack. So Jack is basically becoming the hard boss in this episode. And like I said, what's really strange is that it's good. This plot line is good. Actually, it still narratively fits with the story. But then something happens which leads our characters to a specific path of their adventure, and that is where not the issue, but the oddities of the narrative come in. Essentially what happens is that Jack fires Owen, and Owen basically goes to a bar. Toshika, earlier on in the episode, sees her dead mother, who taunts her to open up the rift, because what she is witnessing is only darkness. Seemingly, Toshika's mother has been resurrected some sort of from the darkness, something which has been mentioned in episodes like Everything Changes, and they keep killing Susie. So it seems like there's a tie into that. Yanto also sees Lisa, the Cyberwoman, who is as a ghost form, and she tells Yanto to basically open the rift as well. There's only one way you can save this and stop everything, and that's by opening the rift. And Owen gets to see Diana Holmes, who basically asks, unlike the other two ghosts, shall we say, to tempt Owen. She's like, I don't know where I am. I don't know what's happening to me. Can you save me? Can you rescue me? Can you get me free? And Yanto already knows that, like, by opening the rift, there's a chance that she could come back. So all these characters are being pushed to a specific ideology, and that is opening the rift would save everything. But the odd thing is that we didn't need the ghost narrative. It feels like, I have a funny feeling, if I had to guess, is that originally Chris Chibnall had written a story completely on its own. It's my belief that the original narrative was that all of these characters being witnessing to the horrible events, especially the viruses, all then come together to basically decide, okay, we will open the rift, especially something that happens on, and Gwen gets specific information about how opening the rift would reverse everything. But that narrative didn't feel like it was part of the storyline, the story arc. It didn't feel like a conclusion to the series finale. And so Chibnall quickly wrote, I wouldn't say quickly, but he wrote these aspects with the ghost so that it can tie in with previous episodes. Oddly, Toshika doesn't see anybody that we've seen before. She sees her mother. I don't know if her mother was ever brought up, but Owen sees Diana, and Yanto sees Lucy. Now here's the interesting thing, or at least I find interesting. Toshika and Yanto see dead loved ones, and they mention the darkness, the endless void of nothingness, on which characters see after death, again, which has been mentioned in episodes like they keep killing Susie. And that story also mentions that there is something that's been searching for Jack, which we get a sort of revelation on that. I don't know if it's ever connected, but a lot of people seem to believe that this is what it means. And they see people from the dead, and it's heavily implied that these are their actual selves that have been brought back from this void, from this nothingness, to try and tempt these characters. But Owen sees Diana, and she tempts him. So, does that mean that when Diana went through the rift, she just died? She didn't land anywhere, she just died, she was killed during that event? I don't know, but I think the story does leave up the door to open that idea, that ideology. After all, this would be her, we wouldn't see her again, or at least I don't think we see her again. And I absolutely love how the background, the rave music in the club stops, and we hear the piano, the theme song from Out of Time, which in my head, I consider it the Owen love song, love theme. So, and that is heavily connected to this story as well. And so we got three characters who, at the moment, only really Owen is pushing for the rift to be open. But for Yanto and Toshika, they don't mention seeing their dead loved ones. Mainly because people will think that they've gone mad. But it's pushing them to do this one thing, opening the rift. Right after Jack fires Owen, Jack and Gwen go to try and track down Billis Major, who they've tracked down to this small little shop that sells antique clocks. Which is strange how they don't go back to the ball, because like he said, he was a manager there. Why didn't they head straight there? It's very odd. But Billis is there, and he basically explains that he somehow found a way to go through the rift with any ease, just like going through a door for normal people. So I think it's implying that he's human, and that because of that he has great powers of time travel. However, he's also learned that it's a great curse, that because of it he doesn't belong anywhere any of these times, and he's cursed to basically see the future, and that's really all that we learn about him as a person. So what can we take from that? What theories, what nerdiness can we come from this? Well, my understanding is that he has seen the future, and because of that, he has to basically let things play out. So I think he kind of understands that messing with time, if he doesn't do something he knows he's going to do, that will break the fabric of reality. So he has to kind of do the things that he knows he's going to do, like the events that are about to come forth. And that is a curse. And in fact, the curse gets pushed even further when he basically makes Gwen see the future, or at least it's implied to be the future, as Gwen sees visions of Reese in her house just covered in blood, on the floor, covered in blood. And that obviously shocks Gwen. She runs to her house to find Reese unharmed, safe, and she knocks him out and brings him to the cells of Torchwood to try and keep him safe. Interestingly, if you rewatch that flashback, that vision, you actually get one or two clips of Reese in the cell. That's really a nice little detail. So it kind of implies that Billis Major made Gwen see the actual future. However, he altered it so that it will be in the house and not in the cells. So Gwen takes Reese to the cells, and we as an audience do understand her viewpoint, her understanding of like events at hand. But something happens which means the Torchwood base goes into lockdown, and Billis actually appears in the cell rooms with Reese and stabs him, killing Reese, putting him as a bloody corpse on the floor, which Gwen then finds his body. And this then pushes Gwen, because Billis Major mentions during in the shop that the only way to fix this, to open it up, to fix everything, is by opening the rift, putting that idea in Gwen's head. And Gwen basically has like a breakdown. She completely breaks down. She screams, she shouts, and then we see her kind of like nauseated by it after we see Reese's body being cleaned up by Jack, and Gwen's just like, that's what this place does to you. This place, it just makes you all alone. Look at all you people. Like, you think you saved us? You think you're helping me? No, you technically were the ones who killed him. But I'm not going to end up alone. Jack, you bring him back. And Jack is like, no, we can't do that. But Gwen realizes, it's like, wait, Billis Major said that we can reverse all this. We can bring him back because time's in flux because the rift has been open. So widening the rift would bring Reese back. And Jack's like, no, you can't do this. You know that the rift is this really dangerous, really dangerous thing to muddle with, and you want to muddle with it. You don't know what you're doing. And the rest of the Torchwood team are basically, because at this point Owen comes back, pushing for the rift to be opening, and Gwen, Yanto and Toshika basically go up against Jack and open the rift. And that was due to the combination of them being told by these ghosts that doing that will fix everything. But like I said, we didn't need all that. We could have had Billis basically coming up to everybody, and characters basically realise the terrible situation that they're in due to this massive pandemic and all of these alien threats coming from the future or from the past. And that, like, it's so strange because the story had already, it's like the story already had the key to the door, but the story decided to use another key, a different key, to open the same door. If that makes any sense. It's strange because it's not even like a bad creative decision. It's just a weird way to turn it, and I feel like that was done mainly, if I had to guess, to tie it in with the rest of the series to make it the finale. Oddly, however, this actually takes the conclusion of Owen shooting Jack and the rest of the Tortured team open up the rift. Actually takes place around about two-thirds way into the story. As the rift opens, everything does get reverted as the Torchwood building sort of kind of crumbles around, but we see people's bodies disappearing, including Reese's, implying that time has reverted or his body's been taken out of time. And Jack gets resurrected in front of everybody, basically revealing to everybody now 100% that he cannot die. He will be, he's a resurrected, immortal creature. And they go outside where everything seems to be back to normal, but something is stomping around. They see this giant demon-like figure, as Billis mentions that this is the son of the beast, a creature that has existed before time was even invented, the great Amagon. I keep hearing that the beast is a reference to the beast that we've seen in The Impossible Planet and the Satan Fist. But I don't think in the story it was supposed, not that it was not referencing that beast, but I don't think it was as a direct reference as in to imply that he is the actual child of that beast. Like, it's a very strange concept, but it's a nice connect into a previous story. But like, the beast is a very loose term. It can literally just mean any sort of creature, and a beast can be used for multiple names of different monsters. So I don't know, like, that beast is the only beast that we know of in Doctor Who that's devil-like. So could be, but anyway, because of the Torchwood team opening the rift, it's released this giant beast, this giant monster who anything under its shadow gets killed. And you just see a bunch of people just running, and then a shadow comes over them and they just fall on the floor, collapsing dead. And like, it's so strange because we had this like massive plot line, and now we've just, all of a sudden we have the devil in it. Like, the story had no implications of religious subtext. It had no references, no detailing about the devil, and suddenly it turns out that the devil was behind it all along, and Billis Major was actually a servant of Abaddon, the son of the devil. I know, it's very strange, it's very bizarre. Again, it doesn't necessarily not work, but it's just a very odd way to place the story. And what's really odd is that they literally bring the devil in at the end, only for it to completely, like they defeat it quite easily, as Jack basically is like, right, I'm an immortal, I'm basically this all-eat buffet for it, and so he basically plans on basically overloading it by giving its life source. So Jack is in so much pain that it appears that he is dead for good. We get like this, I can't remember, what happens to the body of Abaddon? Does it disappear, or does it just crumble to the floor? I can't remember. Torchwood and Unit probably covered it up anyway. So, like, everybody is saved, everything is back to normal. Gwen goes home, finds Reese unharmed, and gives him a nice snog. Jack at the base still hasn't been revived yet. There's this slow, sad montage of Gwen basically just staying beside him in a vain hope that he will come back to life. We kind of get the feeling that it's been a few hours, but Tashika mentions it's been weeks. So, I don't know, 12 days or something like that. which is very bizarre. But Jack does wake up. Jack does wake up, and that is the end of the narrative. We see Jack and Yanto kiss romantically for the first time, and Owen basically breaks down as Jack forgives him. And that ends the narrative. But this story ends on a fun cliffhanger, which will tie into the next series, or at least in terms of when the story was aired, the next series of Doctor Who, as Gwen and Jack talk about like how they seen temptations. It was only really Jack that never saw a temptation, and Gwen asks him what would tempt him, as Jack states, the right kind of doctor. Jack goes out to the main office of the hub, and he sees that the hand in the jar is bubbling and it's glowing, as there seems to be this alert going off. And through the distance, we hear a strange wheezing, groaning sound, and Jack disappears. The camera pans out on Cardiff Bay, and in the distance you can see a blue object and a man running to that blue object, tying in to what we are going to watch next in the marathon. So that is End of Days. Overall, I think by far from everything I've seen, this is the weirdest conclusion to a series finale. In some ways, it's connected heavily to the plot lines, and then in other parts, it's completely disconnected. And it comes up as it's this really strange plot line that has, sometimes it's heavily connected, sometimes it's trying to be its own thing, and I feel like that's where the story falls apart. It's trying to be its own thing and a combination of the series in terms of the plot lines, but it doesn't quite gel. And it's a very strange thing. There's a lot of great moments, there's a lot of great stuff that I remember, especially the dynamic between Jack and Owen, all the characters seeing their ghosts of their loved ones, the fear of Owen when he realises that it's the plague, it's the Black Death that is out and about in Cardiff, and the conclusion with the devil out of context, out of this narrative, is a really epic way to finish a series. But I feel like when you put all of those in the context of this story, of this narrative that we're getting, with Billis Major, with the diseases, with Owen's character and Jack's disapproval of him, from all of this, it's just a bundle of mess. But I do feel like you can really feel Chris Chibnall trying his best to give us a satisfying conclusion. I just don't feel like he succeeded, and the main solution was just to put everything in a blender and just hope that we get a smoothie by the end of it. Strange analogy, I know, but that's what this story feels like. So it's really fun, it's really engaging, but if you're looking for something with a bit of a plot, a bit of a narrative, or a bit of, something to experience, then I feel like this could be a miss in terms of quality. But my God, Chris Chibnall tried, and my God, are there fun moments. There are fun moments in this story. So there you go. That is the End of Days and concludes Series 1 of Torchwood. So join me next time when Jack reunites with his old friend as Jack, Martha and the Doctor find themselves in the distant future as they meet the last humans alive. So join me next time for Utopia, and I'll see you next time on the Doctor Who Marathon. Ta-ra!